Okay, well, I've created 5 questions. I just figured, okay, this is enough to show you what you can do with this. Okay, so I've created 5 questions. And again, with a free account, you're allowed to create up to 25,000 entries. Okay, so basically after that, then you have to upgrade to sort of the next tier of account, which is a bit more expensive, but generally you're probably only using 25,000 entries if you're doing something fairly active, in which case you probably should be paying for your application's infrastructure. But anyways, so now we need to figure out how to call the data. Okay, how to call the data. So first things first, we want to set up a little test environment for us to do like an API call. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a folder, open up my Scratch folder. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a Scratch HTML file. So I'll just put it in a folder. So we'll call this Scratch HTML. I'm just going to make a new file called index.html. And this is just going to be an HTML file to practice fetching the data. Okay, now in this particular tutorial series, I'm going to be using jQuery. So I am going to use jQuery's Ajax function. So in this case, first we need to actually add the jQuery library. So I'm going to head over to code.jquery.com. That's where you can get the latest version. So the latest version is 3.51. I want the uncompressed full version. I'm going to copy this script tag. I'm just going to plop that right in here so that way I can use jQuery. Okay, wonderful. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a script tag over here, because not only can I use script tags to link JavaScript files, but I can also actually use script tags to write JavaScript right in my HTML. So I can actually write JavaScript between these 2 tags. So I'll be able to use the jQuery Ajax function. Okay, so the general gist would be something like this. It would be Ajax, well actually it would be dot Ajax. Then here we're going to have to put the URL. So I'm going to actually create a variable that will hold the URL. Once we figure out what that should be, const URL equals, okay, and then that takes a dot then afterwards because it returns a promise. And in the dot then we have access to the data from the call. So we'll just console log that data. So our goal is to get that to successfully console log our data. Right now it won't work because I have no URL here. Okay, so if I do this, I open this in live server. Okay, I open up the dev tools to see the console. See, right now it's not really getting anything. It's actually literally getting the data from the site, because since I put a blank, it's literally calling itself. Okay, so that's not quite what we wanted. So we'll keep that in mind. But for now, let's go back to Contentful. We need to figure out how to call this data. So what we need to do is we need to read the API docs, which are right here. So I click on this little question mark here. Here is the developer docs. So I'm going to open that in a new tab. And I want to learn how to use the API reference. Now there's different APIs here. Like there's content preview, one for images, content management, like if you want to like add or subtract data. So if, like literally if you want to give create a user dashboard on your website so you can add questions and stuff like that, you could actually use that here. But we're going to keep it real simple. We just want to get the data. We just want to deliver the data to our website. So we're going to use the content delivery API. So generally every API starts off with a basic base URL. So that's going to be our starting place. So I'm going to copy a new tab because we're going to construct our URL first. So this is our starting point, our base URL. Now we need to figure out what the rest of it should look like. This is anything after the slash is referred to as our endpoint. So we need to figure out the right endpoint to get the right data. Okay, and there's lots of endpoints. So if we read through this documentation, you'll see there's lots of different endpoints. So we just need to kind of read through this. We don't care about any of that right now. This is just more advanced stuff. Okay. Not worth reading at some point, but okay. So spaces. All content and assets in Contentful belong to a space. That's if you want to get everything for your entire space. Okay. We just want to get one content type. Okay. Content type. So finding a content type is a fundamental step. Read this guide to learn about how set of fields. So get the content model of a space. Get a signal. I want to get the entries. That's what I want. As a content type in a space. Okay, I want to get all, and no, I don't want to get all entries. I want to get entries of a particular content type. So let's start with this. Okay, so let's see here. This is the endpoint, so let's grab that. I'm going to stick that at the end of the base URL. Well, let me clear that out. It shouldn't be double slashes there. Okay, and anywhere you see these curly brackets, that's something that I need to fill in. Okay, so I need to go find my space ID. I need to go find my environment ID, and I need to go find my access token. So I'm going to go back to the main Contentful website. I think that should be under here, under settings. And I need to go get my API keys. So example space token. So here's my space ID. So I'm going to copy that. Okay, again, I'm going to delete this space once I'm done, so don't get any fun ideas there. Space ID. Oh, nope, this is okay. Yeah, that's where I wanted. Space ID goes here. Okay, now I need my environmental ID and access token. Here is my access token. So let me copy. Yep, this button here is to copy it. So I will copy that over to here where it says access token. Okay, and then I want to go to environment. Select the environments this API key should have access to. Okay, and that's master. I think that's the only environment, so I think I can see a list of environments right here. And see, that's just a master, which is like the equivalent of like a Git branch. So in that case, I should just put that in environment ID master, and let's see what we get back. So again, we got the, so we enter there, and see this is the data we're getting back. Let's just see, do we get the data we'd like to get? Someone use these little arrows just to kind of close things as we go by. Okay, error set. I really want to go into items. So let's see what we got in items. Just start closing things. Okay, so these all look like they're probably, oh, see, they're all of different types. So these are the type of assets, and I just really just want the trivia questions. I don't want every single thing. I could use this worst comes to worst, but let's see if there's a way we can narrow it down to just the trivia questions. So let's see here, environment ID. Is there anywhere I can, any other queries I can add here? I want to get a specific ID. So let's see, your assets are the binary entries which contain links to assets and all assets. Field type, field content type of the file. Let's keep going. Query entries, search parameters. Query entries. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So we want to add, after the access token, this query here. So content type. Now we only get the stuff with the content type we want. So after my access token, let me just copy that over. So content type. Because again, the way this works is that after the URL, so this is really the URL here, and then this question mark going forward is what's called a query string, where you can attach and you can chain together several queries. So this is one query where we're passing in the access token, and then this is another query where we're saying we want a particular content type. Now, what queries work is just based on the application you're using, because everyone, this is what the backend developers do. They design like what queries work with their particular API. Okie dokie. So I'm going to copy that over to here, add that at the end, and I want the content type. So this is why I did it earlier. I changed it to trivia Q, and I want to make sure there's an ampersand right there, because the ampersand means another query. So and content type trivia Q. So let's see, does that do what I want it to do? Array. Well, it still gives me all the items, it looks like. Link, 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 link. Content type. This might just be some initial stuff, because then we get right into the trivia questions. There's the trivia questions. Wait, no. It's still a type called link. I only saw one trivia question so far. I have 5. There's 1. So where's all my other questions? Let's see here. Raise, okay, there's the function, there's a question. So let's see here, if we go to items. We just collapse all of them. Okay, there's 5 questions, that's right. That makes sense. So if I open one up. Yeah, okay, so this time it works. See, there we go. We're only getting content type of trivia queue. And see, this is one object. Good. And notice that this looks different. I have a special plugin called like JSON. So you want to make sure that you have like a JSON viewer type plugin to your Chrome. So look up like JSON viewer, JSON this, JSON that. There's a whole bunch of them, but they allow you to look through the JSON data. But now that we know this is the URL, this URL gives us what we want. Then what I'm going to do is plop that as the URL here. We have our URL. Good. Now I'm going to go to my document and see, now I get this. See, there's the 5 items, and I can look inside each item. And in each item, I want to access the fields, and there's the fields A, answer, B, C, D, question for each question. So there's the data we need to build our trivia game. Perfect. Nice. We did the thing. So next step is just to actually start building the site. But I will do that in a separate video. I'll see you guys later. Enjoy.